Okay, so a very great evening to you, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us again on another exciting Upgrade Mastery just for you. Yes, this is the Upgrade Mastery just for you, and we do this every Fridays from 7 p.m. through to 8 p.m. and we basically just get to relax, unwind, look at all the lessons we've learned all through the week and the things that have happened for us, the lessons we've learned, the challenges we've faced, how we're able to overcome them. These are all the things that we look at and talk about during the Upgrade Mastery just for you. Right. So I'm super excited. This is the last Friday. Yes, this is the last Friday in the month of March, right? April begins very soon, and I'm super excited that we've come through to the end of the first quarter of 2025. Yes, so January is done, February is done, March is done. What has happened for you between now and that time? From January till March, a lot could have changed for you. So let us know about some of those changes that you've experienced. You may have gotten a new job, gotten a new promotion, or you may have switched careers. You may have done something significant for your life between the month of January to March. So this is like a review of your first quarter. What is it that you have done for yourself? What can you look back in the past 90 days and say, oh, I have fought a good fight. I have kept the faith, right? You haven't finished the course yet, but you are making progress. So what can you look back on and say, oh yes, I'm making progress on these areas of my life and I'm super grateful for it, right? It's important that you get to take stock of your journey from time to time so you can know how far you have come and how far you still have to go, right? So the things that we get to do at conversations like this, so we can look back and say, wow, this is how far we've come. This is how far we've come from January to this time. So I'm super excited for you, right? I'm super excited that you are here. I'm super excited that you have made it thus far in the year, right? And I know that there's still amazing things in store for you in 2025. Literally, there's still so much that you're going to achieve, still so much that you're going to do in 2025. And should in case you haven't done so much in the first quarter, relax. You're about to enter the second quarter and it's going to be better for you in the second quarter. So, how are you doing? Hope you're good. Hope you're having a great time. Hope you enjoyed the month of March. Hope you are able to make some significant progress in your journey in the month of March, right? But even if you haven't been able to do anything worthwhile or anything significant, relax. You still have other months to do, and I assure you there are still great things in store for you in the coming months. So do not relent, do not quit, do not give up, just persevere, persist, and you would get your desired result in your journey, right? So every Friday we get to do this conversation, we get to lay down our hair, we get to just relax and chill and unwind and just gist, right? Just gist about everything that's happening around and our own role and responsibilities. One of the things I tell people all the time is I tell people to focus on what they can control and ignore what they can't control. As much as sometimes you're tempted to want to talk about what you can't control, it's an effort in futility because there's nothing you say that will change anything. So why don't you focus on the areas where you can actually make significant changes? That is where you should put your focus on, not on things that you cannot change. So it's important that you pay more attention to the things that you can fix and that you can change and that you can control, while you ignore the things that you cannot do anything about, right? Just ignore it. There's the prayer that God give me the strength to do the things that I should do and give me the strength to live with the things that I know I'll not be able to do for myself, right? So just put your energies on the things that you can control. It saves you a lot, right? It saves you a lot. Stop looking at things you cannot control. It's just an effort in futility, right? So how are you doing? How are you coping? How are you enjoying 2025? Like, what has been the defining moment for you so far in 2025? For me, it has been an amazing journey so far. I've been able to push myself, to stretch myself, to pay more attention to instructions that I've been given and following the instructions through and through. But yeah, it has been a hell of a ride, and I'm super grateful for the journey so far. And I thank God, right? I look forward to more things in this year. This year, an amazing year, is the year we do big things only, right? Big things era activated in 2025. There's so many big things that are going to happen this year, and I keep telling people it's more about current from, not previous records, right? I've done a lot of amazing things in the past, but it's not about the previous record, it's about current form. And so far in the month of March, we've been able to achieve another phenomenal landmark activity. And I'm super glad that okay, we are still pushing boundaries. There's still much more to come in the year, right? So I think you need to focus on the things that you can control while you ignore the things that you can't control. Right? Focus more on the things that you can control while you ignore the things that you cannot control. That will help you as you make progress in your journey, right? Okay, so let's get into a few things today because we need to continue from where we left off. So I look forward to getting your feedback in the comment. Let me know how your March has been, right? In fact, you can tell me how your January, February, and March has been, right? Let me know. I want to hear your story. I want to hear your journey because it shows that we are actually in this together because everybody is making progress, however slow, but it's progress. That's why I tell people all the time that slow progress is still better than no progress. You get that? I'll say that again. Slow progress is still better than no progress. So, however slow the progress is, it's still better off than not achieving any form of progress at all, right? So, even if you feel your progress so far in the year has been slow, it's better than nothing. Slow is better than no, right? Slow progress is better than no progress. So I like to hear from you how your year has been and be brutally honest with yourself. There's no point trying to lie or trying to make things up. Just say it as it is. And in fact, don't even try to be Christianese about it. Say it as it is, right? Because I know and I strongly believe that God always helps those who can't help themselves. Like Papa Idausa would say, no man has ever asked God help me that God has ever denied help. Right? So be brutally honest with yourself and tell yourself that you do need help. And I assure you, help will find you because it is something that you so desire. So be comfortable sharing your journey, your progress. Be comfortable sharing it with me and sharing it with us. You have no idea who your story will just be inspiring. Probably one of these days, we're going to just take people's stories, right? We'll just come online and share our stories because the truth is, what you're going through and you feel, oh, it's so difficult, may just be an inspiration for another person, right? So we are all connected in one way or another. So that's why we do this every Friday, where we get to share our journey during the week, the challenges we face, the difficulties we had, the victories we encountered. All of these things just help us build ourselves up on this journey, right? So feel free to share how your week has been. I would love to learn from it, and a lot of other people too will love to learn from it. Okay, we're going to continue and conclude our conversation for this series. You know, the most recent series we started is called The Escort. Now, I love this because some people think, oh, it's like a movie. I love the title, The Escort. So when you like that action kind of movie of Jason Statham, you know, that guy that is always, you know, the transporter guy, the guy, the beekeeper, the guy that's always having a lot of action in his movie, Jason, right? So that kind of movie, like the Escort. But actually, The Escort is about the prostitute. You know, in today's lingua, they no longer call them the ladies of the night or prostitute. They call them the escort. So you look a little bit. It has a little bit of class, panache, a little bit of finesse, right? So the escort. It doesn't sound like it's still what it is. It's the oldest profession ever, right? Prostitution, right? So that's what we're looking at, the escort, and this time the last time previously we looked at the escort in the person of Rahab. Just in case you missed that conversation, yeah, you need to go back and watch that episode, the escort part 1. Kai, you need to go back and watch that episode. Like, that episode is mind-blowing. It's revealing. As much as Rahab was a prostitute, Rahab had information, Rahab had recognition, Rahab was phenomenal, right? She was able to negotiate, she was able to save her family, even though she was a prostitute. So there was so many talking points from that story and so many lessons to learn. I think we shared about 4 lessons from that, the escort part 1, right, with the story of Rahab. So now we are going to conclude this series on the escort. Since this is the last Friday in the month of March, we're going to end this series here and then begin a new series in the month of April. I don't even know what that series will be, but trust me, you do not want to miss it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be enlightening. So you don't want to miss the next series that will be coming your way next Friday. But today, let's wrap up the escort part 2. And this time, there's another character entirely. We wrapped up Rahab's character the first time, but there's another character entirely in the escort. This time, this character is someone called Mary Magdalene. Not many people know about Mary Magdalene in scripture, as they should, right? They know of Mary, the mother of Jesus. They know of Mary, the sister of Lazarus, which is Mary of Bethany. And then there is Mary Magdalene, right? Mary Magdalene is an amazing character for us to look at when we talk about the escort. Now, just give you guys a little bit of insight into this character before we get in depth into this character. Now, first off, this is not the same Mary as the one who is the mother of Jesus. Neither is this the same Mary as the one who is the sister to Lazarus, right? There was another Mary and Martha who were the sisters to Lazarus, right? In John chapter 11, read about that story where Jesus was told that Lazarus was sick, he delayed, and then after a while Lazarus died. He spent 3 days behind, and then he came on the 4th day, and then brought back Lazarus back to life. Now that Mary who was sitting at Jesus's feet to listen at his words, that Mary is not this Mary we are talking about. That's the Mary that is the sister to Lazarus, right? And then we have Mary, which is the mother of Jesus. And then we have Mary, this Mary we're talking about, which is Mary Magdalene. Yes, she's from Magdala, right? Magdala is a town in Israel. That's where she's from. So it's called, because she's from Magdala, she's now Mary Magdalene, right? She's from Magdala, right? So that's the Mary we're talking about. So it's a different Mary entirely. But there's something interesting you need to notice about this. This Mary is captured in all the 4 Gospels, right? This story of Mary is captured in all the 4 Gospels. You see captured in Matthew 13, the story of Mary is captured, right? You see it captured in Mark chapter 14, verse 3 to 9. You also see that it's captured in Luke chapter 7, verse 36 to 50. And you see also she's captured again in John chapter 12, verse 1 to 8. So you see in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the let me know that we're still here. So yes, are we still here? Can you hear me loud and clear? Great. So remember that woman who they said broke the alabaster? The woman with the alabaster box. Remember that song of C.C. Winers, right? You don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box. Yes, that woman who broke the alabaster is this woman we're talking about. She is the Mary Magdalene. That's the Mary we're talking about. So we're going to go through scriptures and then share some high points of her life and lessons to learn from her. From her story, you have 4 basic lessons to learn and 4 amazing lessons to learn from Mary Magdalene, right? Are you ready? Let me know in the comments that you're ready for this, and let's begin the conversation. So let's go to the scripture. So we'll start from Matthew. So we can take all the stories as it is chronologically, and then we'll now share the lessons that I want you to gain from the escort part 2, because there's so much to learn from this Mary. And even though she was an escort at some point in her life, a lot changed for her, right? The same thing about Rahab. Rahab was an escort at a point in her life, but down the line, she became the great grandmother of David, right? She was in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. That was Rahab, the escort. Now, this other Mary has something also significant that we're going to talk about too. Even though she started out as an escort, but that's not how she ended up her life. This is to let you know that how you begin is not really what counts, is how you end. That's why they tell us better is the end of a thing than the beginning, right? So how you begin really doesn't count. What counts is how you end. Like they say in local parlance, I get before, not be property. Right? Did you get that? So you have something before doesn't mean it's still relevant today, right? So how you begin is not as important as how you continue and how you end. So even though your beginning be small, as scripture says, your greater end, your later end will greatly increase. So Mary Magdalene began as an escort, but she didn't end as an escort. And even while she was an escort, there were still lessons to learn from her. And those are the lessons that we're going to be looking at today that will help you in your own journey. You know, what we do here is to pick out those lessons and the practicality of these things in our everyday life. So this is not just a story in scripture, this is something that you can practice in your own life. Like we learned from Rahab, we're also going to learn from Mary Magdalene. You know, like I said earlier, some people don't even know about this Mary. They just know about Mary, the mother of Jesus. They know about Mary, the sister of Lazarus. But there's also this Mary, which is Mary Magdalene. And she played a significant role in scripture. In fact, she was one of the faithful disciples of Jesus. She was one of those disciples who never left the side of Jesus from when he was arrested till when he resurrected. I love that. From when he was arrested to when he resurrected, Mary Magdalene was steadfast and faithful. She was with Joseph of Arimathea when he went to demand the body of Jesus from Pilate. That's how significant she was in the story. When Jesus rose from the dead, she was the first woman he saw. And he told her, go tell my disciples that I am risen. The same Mary Magdalene. At some point, they casted out 7 demons out of her. But this is still the same Mary Magdalene. So this just lets you know that regardless of how your life starts, how you continue and how you end is what really matters most. Right? That's not the first lesson, but I just want to put that in there for you to always remember. So in case you're feeling, oh, the way my life has started, this is not how you should start. Just don't let that get to you. How you start is not as important as how you continue or how you end. So the focus should be how you continue and how you end, not necessarily how you start. Does this make sense? Okay, great. So let's begin with the first scripture in Matthew chapter 26, right, from verse 16 to 13. It's going to be a long read, and I'm going to be very fast about it. Matthew chapter 26, from verse 6 to 13. Right? Are we still here? Great. Okay, so let's begin the story of Mary Magdalene. From verse 6, it says, now, when Jesus was in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head, and as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? for she had wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me you have not always. For in that she had poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this that this woman had done to be told for a memorial of her. So you see, the first opening part of discovering about Mary is about what she did, right? And Jesus very, very succinctly said that wherever this gospel is preached, what she had done will be mentioned as a memorial for her, including now. I just talked about her now and what she had done. A memorial for her, because he said, the poor you always have among you. So lesson number one, let's get into the lesson, right? Lesson number one is this: intentionality. You see, one of the things that I always stretch and stress for people to have is intentionality. I say this all the time. Excellence is you paying attention to detail. So when it comes to you being excellent, you must be intentional. You could see something about Mary Magdalene. She was intentional. She came to see Jesus. She brought her alabaster, a very expensive ointment. And then she broke it and poured it to anoint him. Now, what she did aggravated the people around, and they said, this is a waste. Said, this is a waste. They had indignation and said, this is a waste. For this could have been sold and the money given to the poor. That lets you know how expensive the alabaster, excuse me, that lets you know how expensive the alabaster was. So the alabaster was not a cheap perfume. It wasn't Sosorobia. It wasn't Hausa perfume. It was a very costly and expensive perfume that the people already knew the worth, and with what she did, they termed it as a waste. Can you be more intentionally wasteful? I'm serious. I'm not even kidding. Can you be more intentionally wasteful for the master? You know, everybody is singing, we be many, the people, I will make Jesus proud, we be many. But are you really going to make Jesus proud? It's a one thing to sing the song, it's another thing to live out the song. Right? Mary Magdalene had intentionality. She didn't just pour any ointment on Jesus, but a very expensive ointment. Right? It was something that was of value to her, that people could recognize the value of it and said, with the way she had used it, this was a waste. And I said earlier, can you be more intentional with your waste? Be more intentional with wasting things for Christ. Be more intentional. So when you are singing, will be many, actually go out there and preach the gospel. Actually go out there and reach out to the lost. That's you being intentional, not just to sing the song. Mary Magdalene was very, very intentional. First, she knew what Jesus was. She knew where Jesus was. She went there. She didn't send a message to Jesus. She went herself. She went there. And then she knew what she needed to do, which was to anoint his body, which she did. Can you be that intentional in your service? Can you be that intentional with your sacrifice? Can you be that intentional? Mary Magdalene was intentional. You know, sometimes we do a lot of things because, oh, last minute, oh, it just happened last minute. No, with the one who is intentional, there are no last minutes. Everything is planned. Everything is planned. With the one who's intentional, everything is planned. There are no last minutes. Mary Magdalene did not suddenly say, oh, okay, let me go and look for Jesus. No, no, no. It wasn't a last minute thought. No, it was planned. It was planned. That's why she got the best of the best in alabaster. It was planned. You know, when someone offers you something that they planned, and when somebody offers you something that they did not plan for, the difference is always clear. You know that this one was planned. You know that this one was not planned, just afterthought. This act by Mary Magdalene wasn't an afterthought, it was a plan. So even though she was an escort, she was a harlot, right? Demons were casted off her at some point. She still had a plan. She was intentional. She was intentional. And you know, intentionality stems always from the fact that you have certain kind of knowledge. So you don't behave like everybody else because the knowledge you have, they don't yet have it. So she knew who Jesus was. She knew what Jesus was about to face. Because this is Matthew 26. A few chapters down the line, Jesus was arrested. Jesus was crucified. Jesus was buried. So she was preparing Jesus for what's to come. And that's what Jesus commended of her because of her intentionality. Jesus said that she has anointed me ahead for my burial. When they were trying to ridicule her and say, oh, what a waste. What you have just done is a waste. The money could have been, the perfume could have been sold and the money given to the poor. And Jesus corrected them and said, the poor you will always have among you. And I've said this over and over again. I always say this, that what is the best thing that you can do for the poor? Some people say, oh, to give them money. Some people say, oh, to improve their mindset. Some people say, oh, to give them connection. I always say this, that the best thing you can ever do for the poor is to not become one of them. I'll say that again. The best thing you can do for the poor is not to give them money. It's not to give them connection. It's not to give them whatever you think you should give them. The best thing you can do for the poor is to not become one of them. Because it is certain, as long as this earth remains, the poor you always have amongst you. That's what Jesus said. Remember the story of Lazarus and the rich man? Lazarus died and went to heaven. The rich man died and went to hell. But in Hades, the rich man saw Lazarus in Abraham's bosom and called to Abraham and told him to send Lazarus to fetch him water. So even while he was in Hades, he still saw Lazarus as the beggar while on earth. The one that scripture tells us that I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. So prosperity is supposed to be, not supposed, prosperity is a birthright for the believer. It's a birthright for the believer. You must have financial domination as a believer. You must dominate financially. And Jesus has told us that in this life there will always be poor people. So your best bet is to not become one of them, because there's always be poor people. Jesus said, "The poor you always have, always, always have." So there's no structural adjustment program that will lift everybody out of poverty. It does not exist. There will always be the poor amongst us, always. But your goal is to not become one of them who is the poor. You now decide which part of the spectrum you want to be. But one thing is certain, there'll always be the poor, there'll always be the rich. You decide which part of the pendulum you want to swing towards. I know they move that way. So move towards the way of wealth and abundance. Right? Move towards that way. So you could see that even though this Mary was an escort, she was wealthy, because having an alabaster alone says a lot. Even if you say it was her life savings, it's a lot. It's a lot. Even if it's her life savings, it's a lot. She was wealthy, even though an escort. As in, she on her own, she did. It's sure for her, right? She's more than a chalugo. It's sure for her, sure die for her. Why? Because she had intentionality. She had the best of the best to take to the one who is regarded as the best, which is Jesus. So the first lesson to learn in Escort Part 2 is intentionality. Mary Magdalene was intentional. Intentional. She went to where Jesus was. She broke her alabaster, her expensive ointment, and then she anointed him in view of his burial. Right? So that's the first lesson we learn from the Escort Part 2, intentionality. So in your journey, in your work, in everything that you do, you must practice intentionality. Pay attention to details. Don't leave things to chance. Practice intentionality. If an escort can practice intentionality, even you should practice it even more. Does this make sense? Great. So let's look at the second lesson, right? And then we'll take the second scripture to explain this. That will be in Mark chapter 14, verse 3 to 9. You know, I told you that her story is captured in the four first book of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we read the account in Matthew. Now let's read the account in Mark, right? Let's see what Mark has to say as we take lesson number 2, which is about honor. So let's see what Mark has to say in Mark chapter 14, verse 13 to 9. Mark 14. Mark 14, 13, 3 to 9, sorry, 3 to 9, not 13 to 9, 3 to 9. It says, now being in Bethany, right, in the house of Simon the leper, he sat at meat. There came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spanking yard, very precious. And she broke the box and poured it on his head. And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, why was this waste of the ointment made? For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and have been given to the poor. And they murmured against her. You know, Joseph in scripture was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver. But the cost of this alabaster was over 300 pieces of silver. And Jesus said, let her alone. Why trouble her? She had wrought a good work on me. For ye have the poor with you always. Again, like we said earlier, the poor you always have around you. And whosoever ye will, ye may do them good. But me, ye have not always. Right? She had done what she could. She is come aforehand to anoint my body to the burying. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever the gospel shall be preached throughout the world, this also that she had done shall be spoken of for a memorial of her. So that tells you that the second point that we learn from this escort part 2 is honor. Honor. Now, one thing about honor, it's about the greatness and the value you see in a person, that you recognize and see in a person. So this woman, though an escort, she could recognize the value of the master, recognized the value of Christ. So she came to honor him. That I recognize the divine in you. I recognize the greatness in you. So she came to honor it. And she broke her alabaster, which means for what you honor, there is nothing you cannot give for what you honor. Now, the reason why you find giving Herculean for you many times because you don't honor what you are given. This woman, she honored Christ. And based on that honor, she would not give what wouldn't cost her anything. Like David said, I will not give to God what will not cost me anything. So she was giving her all, which is her best in view because she honored. Are you getting this? So honor play a very key role. She didn't just bring alabaster because she was commanded or compelled or instructed. She brought it as a result of honor. Like, I honor you. I honor the greatness in you. I honor the divine in you. So we must learn this from the ESCORT too. Honor. And I say this all the time, that you don't honor people because they are honorable. You honor people because you are honorable. So it's about you. So even though she was an escort, she was a person of honor. And so because she was a person of honor, it was easy for her to give honor. You know, they say that you cannot give what you don't have. So she was able to give honor because she's a person of honor. And when you give honor, there's nothing you hold back. That's what she did. She brought her very best, is in honor. That's where that word is coined from, honorarium. How much you honor the value. You know, there's been a conversation that has been trending over some days now. Should ministers charge? Should gospel artists charge? All of this charge. The goal is simple, and I'm not even going to talk about it. The goal is learn to honor people. However you want to honor them, let them feel like they are honored. You see, when she did what she did, people around her felt like, man, this is a waste because of the quality of what she did. If what she did was not significant, they would not even have remembered or paid attention to it. But because of the honor with which she did what she did, they paid attention. They even criticized her. And Jesus stood up in her defense. So you see, when you honor people, people will stand up in your defense. She didn't try to defend herself to say, oh, this was why I did it. No, Jesus himself, the one whom she honored, stood up in her defense and said, the poor you always have amongst you. But what she had done aforehand before my burial. She had anointed me in view of my burial. So wherever this gospel of the kingdom will be preached, her name will be mentioned for a memorial, including today. That's because of the honor. See, whether you like it or not, you must learn to honor people. It's for your own good. It's not for them. It's for your own good. She could have said, oh, that's the Messiah. That's Christ. I cannot even come close to him. I'm a sinner. I am this, I'm that. No. A culture of honor propelled her to do what she did. Honor. That's the only thing. Honor. I told you earlier, this same Mary was the one that 7 demons were casted out of her. The same one that was regarded as sinful at a point. But still the same one who understood honor. Still the same one who became a disciple that would not leave the side of Christ. Even when Peter and the others abandoned Christ and fled, she stayed. When Jesus was speaking to his mother and saying, mother, behold your son, son, behold your mother, Mary Magdalene was still there at the foot of the cross. She stayed. That's part of honor. She stayed. She didn't go anywhere. And at the 3rd day, resurrection morning, she was the first to get to the tomb and saw that the stone had been rolled away. She was the first to engage the angels in conversation and say, who had rolled this stone away? Where have they taken my master to? That's how much she honored. She went all in. She went all in. So the question is, do you really honor? Because you see, what she did with the alabaster was a sacrifice of honor. A sacrifice of honor. Like I told you, the worth of what she did was not even calculated by her. It was calculated by the onlookers who said, these things should have been sold and the money given to the poor. If it wasn't expensive, why would they be thinking of selling and giving the money to the poor? But for the one who honors, honor is more expensive than the cost of anything. Because when you truly honor, there's nothing you cannot give because you honor. There's nothing you cannot give. There's nothing you cannot give. Right? Does this make sense? There's nothing you cannot give when you truly honor. And that's the second lesson we learned from Mary Magdalene. Honor. She came with alabaster. Nobody compelled her. Nobody forced her. Nobody blackmailed her. She came in honor. And I told you that there are things you receive in honor and there are things you receive in dishonor. You will always know the difference. But you say, oh yeah, take now, just take, just take. You know that this is dishonor. Somebody's giving you something with so much honor. You want to have it, you want to receive it because of the honor that is coming with. That's the same thing, guys. The same thing. Even though she was an escort, she understood honor, which is you seeing and celebrating the divine in a person, seeing and celebrating the greatness in a person. Honor. Right? So let's make progress because there's another lesson that I want us to learn. And this time, let's go to the book of Luke 7, verse 36 to 50. That's another place where this story is captured. Luke chapter 7, verse 36 to 50. Right? Like I told you, this is one story that's captured in all the 4 beginning chapters of the New Testament. Right? Luke 7, verse 36 to 50. And this is what scripture says. Scripture says, and one of the Pharisees desired him that he would eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. Right? And behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner. Remember, a sinner, a harlot, a sinner. When she knew that Jesus sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment. Intentionality. She knew, she had information. She knew where Jesus was. And stood at his feet behind him, weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears and wiped them with the hairs of her head and kissed his feet and anointed them with ointment. So you see, everything she did, this was explaining the intentionality with which she did what she did. First, she was weeping. So she used her tears to wipe his feet. Do you have an idea how dirty the feet of people were at that time? Do you have an idea how dirty their feet were at that time? Very dirty. You know, the pots that Jesus told them to fill at that wedding in Cana in John chapter 2, right? Those pots were pots that were used to wash the feet of guests when they arrived. You know, these are guys that normally trek, like they were the first users of trekkers. They trek. Their feet are always dusty. See, even Jesus, when he was telling the disciples to go and pray, he said, when you get to a place and they do not accept you, dust your feet and walk away. So there's always dust. Now, that is the feet where she started to wipe with her tears and to clean with her hair before she went further to anoint. You see honor, you see intentionality. Lesson number 3 that I want us to see is worship. Lesson number 3 is worship. And you see, you cannot really worship without your substance. Yes, you cannot worship without your substance. Yes, I know there's the sacrifice of praise, which is the fruit of your lips. There's the wave offering, there's the dance offering. But you see, at the end of the day, you cannot completely worship without your substance. This was her substance that she brought. She brought herself. She brought her tears. She brought her hair. And then she brought her alabaster, which was expensive. That is her form of worship. She wiped his feet with her tears and wiped his feet also with her hair. And then before she starts to anoint with the alabaster. So she didn't just pour the alabaster on dirt. She first wiped his feet with her tears and her hair. So it was clean. And then she now applied the alabaster. That's worship. That's worship. And Jesus did not resist her from doing it. No, because he's the one who receives our worship, our substance, our time, our all and all. He receives it. That's why the commandment is, thou shalt worship no other God except him. So he receives worship. He deserves worship. He craves our worship. And this woman had brought worship. She came to worship him. She came to worship him. You know, the old hymn goes, down, down at your feet, oh Lord, is the most high place. In your presence, Lord, I seek your face. I seek your face. For there is no higher calling and no greater honor than to bow and kneel before your throne. Lord, I'm amazed at your glory embrace. By your mercy, O Lord, I live to worship you. The woman with the alabaster, she brought worship. Substance was part of the worship, not just her words, not just her actions alone, but her substance. Her substance was part of the worship. Even though she was an escort, she came to worship. She brought her substance. And see how important it is. See how important it is. He says, and now when the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it, he spake within himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would have known what and what manner of woman this is that touched him. For she is a sinner. They are still looking at her past. And Jesus answering said unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And he said, Master, say on. There was a certain creditor which had two debtors, one that owed 500 pence and another 50. And when they had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both. Tell me therefore, which of them will love him most? And Simon answered and said, I suppose that he whom he forgave the most. And he said unto him, Thou hast rightly judged. And he turned to the woman and said unto Simon, seest thou this woman? I entered into thy house. Thou gavest me no water for my feet, but she had washed my feet with tears and wiped them with the hairs of her head. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I came in, had not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil thou did not anoint, but this woman had anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And he said unto her, thy sins are forgiven. And they sat at meat with him, and they that sat at meat with him began to say within themselves, who is this that forgiveth sins also? And he said to the woman, thy faith saved thee. Go in peace. See these guys. She came to offer worship, and her worship was accepted. And Jesus, even because of her, gave a parable and said, there is a man who had two people who owed him money. One owed him 500 and the other owed him 50, and he forgave them both because they couldn't pay. And then he said to Simon, which one do you think will love him the most? And Simon said, the one who owed him the most, which was 500. And Jesus said, the same thing with this woman. She has been forgiven the most. That's why she loved the most. That's why she came to offer worship. And Jesus told her, you have been forgiven. And worship was accepted. And Jesus pointed out to Simon, look at the things that you have not done since I came. But this woman had done every as part of her worship. She wiped my feet with her tears. You didn't even wash my feet when I came. She wiped them with her hair. You didn't even clean them at all. You didn't anoint my hair. She had anointed my feet. She had been kissing the feet non-stop. Worship. Her substance was worship. Her action was worship. She came and offered worship. And her worship was accepted. And she was forgiven. Lessons to learn from this woman. Amazing lesson. And this takes me to the fourth lesson and the final lesson in today's conversation, which is the beauty of it all. Rewrite your story. This woman with the alabaster, she rewrote her story. She was a sinner, a well-known sinner. In fact, Simon said, do you know what manner of woman she is? She was a well-known. And if she was well-known for good things, they would have said it. You know, like Tabitha in Acts chapter 9 was well-known for the things she was helping the widows, right? She was helping out and doing good deeds. So she was well-known for that. But this woman, Mary Magdalene, was well-known for something else because she was an escort. She was a sinner. But yet, she was able to rewrite her story. This is a lesson that you too can learn. You can rewrite your story. Your story doesn't have to end the way it is right now. You can rewrite it. She was an escort. Yes, she had intentionality. Yet she had honor. Yet she had worship. And her sins was forgiven. Her story was rewritten. And Jesus said about her, wherever the gospel is being preached, her name will be mentioned for a memorial. What does that tell you? You can rewrite your story. Your story does not have to end the way it is now. It can be rewritten. And you have it in you to rewrite your story. You have it in you to rewrite your story because you can rewrite your story. You can rewrite your story, guys. So let's look at the last part where her story was mentioned in John chapter 12, verse 1 to 8, because I told you she's mentioned in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So let's look at how it is captured in the book of John, chapter 12, verse 1 to 8. I know this John chapter 12 is just after John chapter 11, where Jesus went to raise Lazarus from the dead. Right? One of these days, we want to talk about that story of Lazarus. One of these days. One of these days. Right? We're going to look at it. John chapter 12. So let's look at John chapter 12 from verse 1 to 8. That's where the story is captured. John chapter 12, 1 to 8. And then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then said one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and had the bag and bear what was put therein. So which means he used to pilfer, he used to steal from the poor. He was the treasurer. So he wasn't saying it because he cared for the poor. He was saying it because if they had sold it, he would have had part of the money and he could have taken from the money. Yet he was the one carrying the money. Yet he was the one who sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. You see, there is enough to meet the world's need, but there's not enough to meet the world's greed. Not enough. And then Jesus said, let her alone. Against the day of my burying has she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Are we getting this? This lets you know that even our action was condemned, but nevertheless, it didn't stop her. She did what she had to do. And Jesus commended her. He says, let her alone. Let her alone. She was able to rewrite her story. People called her sinful. She was actually sinful, right? She was possessed with 7 demons at a point. But her story was rewritten. Her story was rewritten. Her story was rewritten. She became a disciple, a faithful disciple at that, right? And she was the first person who saw the resurrected Christ, the first person. So this story of the ESCORT 2 about Mary Magdalene is an example of mercy and grace. It's an example of mercy and grace. She received grace. She obtained mercy. Though a sinner, but she became a disciple, a faithful one at that, who never left the side of Jesus. While the other disciples fled for their lives, she stayed. She stayed. When Joseph of Arimathea went to demand from Pilate the body of Jesus so he can be buried in the tomb, she was with Joseph of Arimathea and she went with him to Pilate. She stayed. Because the one who knows he has been loved much does much. She knew how much she was loved. She knew how much she was rescued. She knew how much she was saved. She was the one who went to announce the risen Christ to the other disciples because she was the first person to see him. She went to tell the other disciples that he is risen. Jesus appeared to her after the resurrection. She was the one Jesus said, do not touch me yet because I have not yet ascended to my Father and your Father. It was this Mary. She was the one. She was the one. Mary Magdalene, the same one that was regarded as sinful, the same one that 7 demons was casted out of her. But she was the one who Jesus interacted with first when he resurrected from the dead. How do you go from that place of being a sinner to being the one who is seeing the resurrected Christ first of any person. She was the one who went with Jesus to Calvary. She was with him while they were beating him. She went with him. She did not deny him. She did not run. She stayed with him. She was the one who also went to the tomb on resurrection morning to go and check. And she saw that the stones had been rolled away. She was the one. This same Mary. What does this tell you? You can rewrite your story. You can rewrite your story. Your story doesn't have to end the way you think it is right now. You can rewrite your story. You have that power and ability in you to rewrite your story. Regardless of how it is right now, you can rewrite your story. Guys, this is the Escort Part 2. And this is the story of Mary Magdalene. She's not talked about much, but she played a significant role in Scripture. She's one of those female disciples that cannot be ignored during the lifetime of Jesus. You cannot ignore Mary Magdalene. You cannot ignore Mary Magdalene. And like I told you, there are several Marys in Scripture, 3 worthy of note. There's Mary, the mother of Jesus. There's Mary, the sister of Lazarus. And there is Mary Magdalene. Guys, I hope you've learned something from this series on the Escort. You've learned the 4 amazing lessons from Mary Magdalene. Number 1, intentionality. Number 2, honor. Number 3, worship. And number 4, rewrite your story. And these are the things that we saw happen in the life of Mary Magdalene. I hope this has been worth your time. I hope that you have learned something. And I hope that as you get into the new month of April, always remember this: you can rewrite your story. And just like Mary Magdalene, your story does not have to end the way it began. It can end the way it's supposed to end. Like I tell people all the time, what you are going through is just a bend. It is not the end. It must all work out for good. That's when it's the end. Until it's good, it's not the end. It's just a bend, right? And you can navigate your way back to being good. Even though Mary Magdalene was a sinner, Mary Magdalene was an escort, but she navigated her way and she ended up being a faithful disciple of Christ. And that too, you can become. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Do well to share this with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and even your enemies, because there's so much that they too can learn from the Escort Part 2. Like we always say, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. And that's why we encourage you that you leave good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.